Hey guys, welcome back to What the Fat. This is your host, Dr. Ryan Lowery. This weekend was incredible. Had a great time at this special event put on called Keto Academy, put on by Prove It, and it was an incredible event because my good friend Josh Perry was there, who you guys have heard on the podcast before, but also some of the most amazing thought leaders in the entire keto world. Dr. David Diamond, Dr. Ken Ford, Dr. Mary Newport, just literally Dr. Lillian. Some of the science and the data they were talking about was absolutely fascinating. Dr. Lillian just did a study, and I probably should get her on the podcast, where she literally found that people who are insulin resistant can't get into a state of ketosis as easily. However, they're still able to utilize ketones, which was really, really fascinating. And there's a whole detailed web that I won't go down on this podcast because I have some other things I want to jump into. But it was really interesting to understand that people who are insulin resistant, like maybe fasting for these long periods of time isn't ideal to start out because they have a more difficult time getting into ketosis. So the question is, how do you fix the metabolic machinery in order to allow them to get into a state of ketosis, which was really, really fascinating. But I want to talk on something because Josh sparked this and really inspired me. He crushed it at the event, and I think everyone there absolutely fell in love with him and his story. And it's incredible because it's a little over a year since we first met. After he DM'd me on Instagram, sent me a message and was like, "Hey man, like would love to connect." And I sent him back a video message, and he tells the story every single time he's on stage of how much that meant to him. And for me, it just seemed like a simple, like, hey, I send video messages or voice messages to people all the time as a DM back on Instagram, and I don't think anything of it. But for him, it just made the world of a difference, and now we're incredible friends and brothers. So he gave a phenomenal talk and presentation, and something that I even forgot to ask him about on the podcast when he was on here is something that goes along with Josh's mindset that I think can resonate with very many people. Is he has these tattoos on his arms, and for a long while, like, I didn't even pay attention to it, and two, I didn't really understand what it meant until I started relating it to, like, it kind of reminded me this morning when I was at the gym, and I'll get into that. But Josh's tattoo, it says fear is just a thought, and thoughts can be changed. Think about that for a moment. Fear is just a thought, and thoughts can be changed. And I was like, wow, like that is deep. And I was thinking about it more and more because I'm about to go get a tattoo this week as well. And I'll tell you guys all about that after I get it done. I'll be posting more about it. But it's really powerful. If you think about that statement, fear is just a thought and thoughts can be changed, because it really shows the importance of mindset and how big of a factor your mind plays into things. And so, for instance, the reason why I thought of it this morning is, like, I typically, when I go to the gym, like, and I'm benching, I was doing chest today, I typically don't go over 225 pounds. Like, those days when I was benching 275 pounds, they're long gone. Like, that's not my focus anymore. But I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't repped out 225 in a while. Like, let me try and do that. And when I first put it on, like, I could sense, like, this anxiety, this fear building up in me. And when I first went to go do it, I was like, wow, like 2 plates on there, like that's a lot. Like, I haven't done this for 8 reps in a while. I don't know if I'm ready for it. So I was like, you know what? Like, in my mind, I was like, you know what? If I get 6, I'll be happy with it. And if you guys could guess, what do you think happened? I literally struggled to get 6 repetitions, and I was like, okay, like I wanted 8 to 10, but like in my mind, before I went and I sat down on the bench and I was going, I got 6 reps, and that's exactly what I got. And so I was like, dang, that was heavy. Like, I remember the days where I used to rep that out like 10 to 12. It was easy. And I was like, this literally goes back to what Josh was saying in some form or fashion. Like, in the exercise world, for me, it was a fear of like, wow, like I haven't done this in a while. I haven't benched 225 for reps, and this is a lot of weight, and I don't know if I'm ready for this, and blah, blah, blah. All these things going through my head. And so I had to take a step back. I was like, wow, like let me reframe this and go like, no, I used to do this. This was routine. Like, I can change my thought pattern. And I started to change that thought pattern over and over again, replay to myself, and start to visualize over and over again how many times I used to rep out 225. And so I rested a little bit, and next time I was like, you know what, I'm going to shoot for 12. And what do you think I got? I got 12, right? After 10, someone had to come over and spot me, but I was like, I'm not stopping. Like, I literally cranked out 2 extra reps. So what made the difference that I was able to double it despite it being the same weight? Did I get stronger? Did I like automatically just put on a ton of muscle in the three minutes that I rested in between sets? No, it was a mindset change, right? And it goes back to a study, and I've never even talked about this study before. And this study basically was fascinating. And I think this probably happens more often than people notice at the gym, especially if you have a training partner. But what this study did was they looked at, like, if you guys know what a pull down is, right? You know that machine where like it looks like you're doing a pull up, but you're like pulling down with a cable, right? And it's really like a back exercise. Well, they did that exercise, and they blacked out the amount of weight. And what they did was, before, they determined someone's 1 repetition maximum, which basically means the amount that they could row down one time. That's it. And so say, for instance, it was males and females. Say, for instance, it was 1 repetition, and they could get 100 pounds. So boom, 100 pounds is their 1 RM. Well, then they blacked it out, and they said, okay, cool, we're gonna move up in increments and see how you can do. They had them come back on a separate day. And when they came back, they told them, hey, you know what, we're going to do about 70% of your 1 RM, which for that person would be about 70 pounds, right? Because if their 1 RM was 100, 70% of that would be about 70 pounds. But instead, they would put on 80 pounds. And they said, you know what, you should be able to get this about 10 times. And what would they do? 10. Easy, right? Row it all the way down 10 times. And they're like, okay, cool. We're going to bump it up to 80%. They think it was 80 pounds. It was actually 95 pounds. Boom. You should be able to get this like 8 times. Boom. Repped it out. And then all of a sudden they said, you know what? We're going to go about 95% of your 1 repetition max. You should be able to get this about 3 times, 2 to 3 times. And most people, they would put it at like 110, which is 10% over. And they thought it was 90%, but it was actually 110% of their 1 RM. And what do you think happened? They got 3 repetitions. And so it's fascinating to think about, because this study showed the power of the mind, even when you think it's a limiting factor such as muscle tissue or how much strength you're able to exert. When they didn't know how much was on the bar or how much was on the pulley, they didn't fear then go, oh, I'm going to stop at my 1 RM. And it's kind of like an anecdote for life, right? It's kind of like an analogy for what happens in daily life. Like, how many times, whatever you're doing in the gym, number one is a perfect example, but just in life, in business, whatever you're trying to pursue, how many times have you put the brakes on because you're like, oh no, like I can't do that, or this fear starts to consume you, and you never change the thought pattern, and you get stuck that way the entire time, right? Whether it's in the gym when you're working out, whether it's financially, whatever you're trying to accomplish financially in your life, where you're like, oh, I should never do this, or there's no way I could ever make that. And you put these limiting beliefs on you, and it's ultimately a sense of fear because you're like, I don't know how to go above that. I don't know how to raise myself to that level. And because of that, you stay hindered your entire life. And so it was really, really powerful to hear him talk about all of the things that and I've heard him talk about it a million times. He's talked about it on What the Fat, but just hear him reiterate everything he's overcome and how much fear can play a role, especially when you have brain tumors and you're going through a lot of what he went through, and how he just switched his mindset, right? Now he lives in love and gratitude versus like fear and scarcity, and his whole mindset and perspective is completely changed. And I hope more that resonates and more people are able to do the same, because it's a really powerful thing when you're able to switch your mindset and go, you know what, like I have the choice to be afraid, to have a scarcity mindset, to be worried about what's going on, or I cannot be afraid. I can live in abundance. I can live in gratitude. I can live full of love and completely and radically change the entire outcome of my life. And I think for a lot of people, that entire perspective, that little shift, that little change of their thought pattern can make the world of a difference. It's exponentially greater. It's not like, oh, I'm getting a little bit better. It's exponentially better. Like the minute that people stop saying, oh, you know what, I deserve to be just a $12 an hour person, and instead say, you know what, why not make $100,000 a year? The minute you make that shift, it's like, cool, you start seeing things from a different light. You start seeing how that's possible. You find ways to go out and go above, especially when you're surrounding yourself with people who are doing that and more. And keeping people like that are close in your proximity make the world of a difference and can allow you to level up and understand that was just a fear. That was just a thought pattern. And by you changing that, it ultimately helps you level up. And so I just wanted to jump on really quick this week and talk to you guys about that, because I want to hear how some of you, and you guys have been giving incredible feedback and hit me up on Instagram and Facebook, and leaving amazing reviews on iTunes all about the show. And I love getting your guys' feedback. And this is one of those topics that I want to get your feedback on, and kind of would love to know what your guys' thoughts are on this concept of that fear is just a thought and thoughts can be changed, and things in your life that you've been fearful of. Think about you, your loved ones, or anything else that you're going on, like things that are holding you back, what those fears are, and how you can change the thought pattern to change the outcome, right? Because the minute you stay in this constant state of fear and scarcity is the minute you won't grow. And if you're not growing, you guys know what? You're dying. And so in order for you to keep growing, you have to change that thought pattern. You have to understand what are some of those limiting beliefs, what are some of those things that are holding you back and preventing you from achieving whatever you're trying to achieve, and then allow that thought pattern to change and fuel you towards growth. So I hope that helps some of you. You guys know how big of a fan of Josh I am, and he's doing incredible work. And I love the fact that he messaged me a year ago, had really never spoken on stage before. Now he's speaking on stages in front of thousands of people, absolutely loving it, is filled with gratitude, filled with love. And I told him very early on, I said, man, I'm telling you, you're going to be a household name. And he's getting there. And I love watching someone like him, and just anyone, my friends, family, this community grow and develop and step into their greatness, because he's changed his thought pattern. He's let that fear go away, and he's like, you can see him leveling up at a rapid pace. So with that being said, guys, let me know some of the things that have been holding you back, and how you've kind of changed your thoughts, changed your mindset, and how that's led to a different outcome than what you think would have led you down the path of fear and scarcity and all the other negative emotions that you might have been wrapped up in. So I hope that helps, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in to this week's What the Fat. We will have an incredible guest on next week. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. As always, make positivity louder. I'll talk to you later.